And of course, as I was trying to explain here, the whole of this week we've been talking about accreditation services, where you have more than 300 delegates from around the world converging here in Mombasa to discuss the way forward when it comes to driving accreditation services around the world. And of course, today we have had various presentations on what we need to do as a world to drive the uptake and of course to deepen accreditation services in Kenya, in Africa and beyond. Joining us tonight is the Chair-elect for the Global Accreditation Corporation Incorporated. This is Eng.Ebrahim Houla. He's also the Accreditation Director in the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is based in Saudi Arabia. And he's going to help us understand what do we need to do to upscale accreditation services, and of course, what is the future of accreditation, not only here in Africa, but around the world. Thank you very much, Houla, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, O'Brien.
Would you please take a minute and help us understand, in the simplest of terms, what is accreditation?
You're right. Accreditation is not a simple term. It's a technical term. It's also an indirect effect on economy, and that's why sometimes it's not easy to understand. But if you want to put it in a story, we can take a story of a farmer, let's say Mwangi from Kiembu County, for example. He's producing avocado. And he's a hard worker and he tries to sell his avocado. Maybe he doesn't need accreditation and accredited services when he's just selling in his local market, because he bases that on reputation and people trust him. But once he goes outside from his county and he starts to sell in other towns in Kenya, maybe he will need certificates of conformity and tests in laboratories to make sure that his avocado is free from pesticides and also is organic as he claims. So that time he needs a trusted lab, and that lab can be accredited locally by KNAS, for example, in Kenya for its activities. Once he wants to go and export, for example, to Germany or to Europe, then they will ask him, is this lab trustful? How can we trust that lab? And that's why comes accreditation that links the trust of that product conformity with other countries. And KNAS, the accreditation body of Kenya, has established a good accreditation system that was recognized worldwide. And KNAS has signed the multilateral agreements with 129 other accreditation bodies worldwide, where the results of that lab that is accredited are accepted in another country, and Mwangi can export his avocados without having his avocados tested again and stopped at the customs.
Well, thank you for that explanation. And so then the question comes, and you're talking about a world that has almost 200 countries in the world, but you have 129 accreditation bodies.
Yes.
Why is that a good number? Is that a bad number?
So the countries are different levels of development of their quality infrastructure. Some economies, they already have established accreditation bodies, and they have that activity of accreditation available for their economic development. Some other economies are still developing accreditation bodies. They don't have the accreditation bodies. And this is an example in Africa, for example. Not all African countries, the 54 accreditation services are available. We have around between 12 and 15 countries that have their accreditations available. Out of the 54 countries, which means that there's a lot of work to be done, to be developed. It is not the question of establishing an accreditation body for the accreditation activity only, is also, does the economy have enough activity and needs trust in their conformity assessment to create an accreditation body? And that's why we need first the quality infrastructure to develop in a level where it needs accreditation and it can export to other economies. Sometimes some countries, they choose not to create an accreditation body and to rely on neighbor countries with their accreditations, because that can be more cost effective. Instead of creating an accreditation body, there's another one who's already working and recognized, and they can provide for a reasonable price the accreditation to the economy.
So what I'm getting from you is there is a direct correlation between economic output and the number of accreditation.
Exactly, yes. And I think this is what you say is very precise, because we have the United Nations Index for Quality Infrastructure. It's called QI4SD, which is Quality Infrastructure for Sustainable Development. And one of the main parameters of this index is the number of accredited conformity assessment bodies, number of laboratories, inspection bodies, certification bodies that are accredited. Because the more you have certification, inspection, and testing required in the economy, the more that shows there's an economic activity that needs that. And that shows there's production, there's exports, there's certifications, there's buildings that need to be inspected, there's medical labs that need to be accredited, which shows that economic development. So the more your economy develops, the more you have accreditation activity used.
Look, for example, let's take this message home and come to Africa. And thank God you're from Tunisia.
Yes.
So you live in Saudi Arabia. We were talking about China with about 27,000
Yes,
accreditations.
Yeah.
And this is one country with about 1.4 billion people.
Yeah.
Then you come to Africa, a continent of 1.3 plus a billion people, and 3,000 accreditations.
Yes.
What does this say about the two countries, the two regions?
Economies, yeah. So I think first in Africa we have around 3,800 accredited conformity assessment bodies from labs, inspection bodies, certification bodies. And China maybe started their activities a little earlier than Africa from the economic point of view, but also the economical activity in China with all the exports, the diversification of industries that are covered in China is a little different from Africa. And I think what this says is that we have a lot to do in Africa. We have the potential, we have the people, we have the competencies, and we have the political will to do this. So I think we need to start working together for this. The other difference is that China is one country, so it's more easier for that economical activity to be moving products to be sold from one part to another. In Africa, we still have different countries. So we need to have the African Union and also the trade agreements, the FTA, the African AFC FTAs between African countries, more and more strong and more effective to have not only the intra-African trade, but also the African market as a market. So when you have 1.3, 1.5 billion people, that's a very interesting market for investors and for exporters. And that will be maybe one of the actions that we can have together as African countries to develop our economies.
Mm-hmm. You are the incoming chair of the Global Accreditation Corporation Incorporated, which will be in charge of coordinating the activities of all these accreditation bodies. And so when you look at Africa, you're looking at 54 countries. And again, you look at China, it's one country, 27,000 accreditation. What do we need to do to break our barriers and ensure that we have as many accreditations as possible?
Yeah, I think it has to be a multi-step strategy. So accreditation is one of those components, but the quality infrastructure in the African economies has different components. So we have, the first components are the policies and regulations. We need to coordinate our policies and regulations so that we can have that African product mark, so that we have that free movement of people and products in the African countries. That's very important from the regulatory point of view. Then we come to the metrology point, where we have the accuracy of measurements, of production, weights and measures. Then we have the standardization. We have the ARSO, which is the African Standardization Organization. We had a presentation today that shows there's a lot of common standards. When you have common standards, the product that is produced in Morocco will have the same requirements and standards as the one created in South Africa or in Kenya. And that will help a lot for those products to be accepted between each other. Conformity assessment is the next component, where testing, calibration, inspections, where they follow the same methods. So if I test something in Kenya, I don't need to test again in South Africa because it's the same way of testing. That's also a coordination to have. Then comes accreditation, and finally comes the market surveillance. I think that for your question, we need to work on all these levels at the same time. We need to grow the quality infrastructure components together so that we can have the complementarity between the African countries, and we can get to the levels where the economy really benefits from the quality infrastructure. A multi-staged, multi-sectorial strategy needs to be there between African countries. I think it's already started with the African Union approving the work on Africa trademark, and also with the ARSO standards that have been developed to be common standards between the different African countries. We are on the way, steps are progressing, but we need also to think about the challenges coming from different economies worldwide with digitalization, artificial intelligence, and capacity building that needs to be established to get to that level.
You're talking about Africa, and this is a continent with about 1.3 billion people, an economy the size of about almost 1.2 trillion US dollars. And when you look at accreditation services, is there any correlation between economic output and accreditation services?
Thank you, Brian, for this question, because this is one of the main discussions we have at the accreditation community on how to evaluate the economical impact of accreditation in our economies. It's very important. Why? Because accreditation has an indirect impact on economy. We do not sell products directly. We do not affect the jobs directly. We work from the behind. So the next step will be the conformity assessment activities and then industry. And that's where we can have that effect. The effect of accreditation as the top of the pyramid of the quality infrastructure is a multi-level effect. So it has an effect at its own level for the people who work in accreditation, the people who do assessments, the income that is done by accreditation. Then it has an effect on economy by the accredited conformity assessment bodies that are accredited by the accreditation bodies for all the labs, the inspection activities, the certification activities, the people who go to the markets and make samples, those who make comparisons in labs, all those levels. And then comes to the industry where Mwangi, for example, exporting avocado, he will be able to export tons and tons to other countries because he has a certificate that proves the conformity of his product. So there was experiences in UK, Italy, and Australia where they made an estimation of the impact of accreditation in economy. In Australia, it's around 1 million Australian dollars per day as a contribution to the economy. In UK is almost the double of that, and also in Italy. And all these studies have been done in cooperation with universities where we have that multi-effect and multi-parameter equation where we can calculate the effect of accreditation on the economy.
Very well. As we come to the end of this conversation, I also want to hear from you. You're taking over the mantle of leadership of the Global Accreditation Corporation, incorporated in January. And this is going to be a momentous occasion. It's also going to herald the merger of two major agencies. One of them is ILAC, and the other one is the International Accreditation Forum. What is your vision and mission once you become the chair?
Thank you for this question. This was part of my discussion with our members when we wanted to have the elections. And one of the important points is that we need the Global Accreditation Corporation Incorporated to have its rightful position at the international arena. The fact that we had two organizations covering two scopes was always making confusion for a number of regulators and the positioning of the organizations internationally. We need also to have more economies involved in accreditation. As you have seen, we do not cover every country around the world with accreditation. Capacity building is very important. Coordination and inclusivity of accreditation to different economies worldwide is very important. And also our vision in accreditation is to have that one address for trust for conformity assessment worldwide. We try our best with the cooperation of all the regions to have accreditation making that address of trust and making regulators, economies and trade use accreditation as their main tool for trust and transparency. This is our vision for Global Accreditation Cooperation, and hopefully with the cooperation from AFRAC and different regions worldwide, we can achieve that goal.
Very good. We wish you all the best, engineer.
Thank you very much.
Well, we look forward to more engagement with you, even when you become the chair.
It's a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to be in Kenya. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Very well. Okay. Eng.Ebrahim Houla is the Accreditation Director in the Gulf Cooperation Council, as well as the incoming chair of the Global Accreditation Corporation Incorporated. And of course, his swearing in is going to take place next year. And so we're looking forward to more engagement and, of course, to understand his agenda when it comes to driving accreditation services around the world. You've been watching us live from Mombasa. My name is O'Brien Kimani, and of course we're covering the first international accreditation conference which is taking place here at the coast. Thank you very much. Back to you, Karen, direct in Broadcasting House.